Hey everyone! So I haven't been on to update you guys in a while because last week, this last weekend, I went to Barcelona with my friend for her birthday, um, and that was really fun. And I've just been going to school, doing the normal routine, studying. This last week, the week before this week, I decided to switch classes. I was in a literature class, and the literature homework was, for 1 week, it was about 30 articles, and each article had at least 20 pages or more of Old Spanish. So I couldn't read it or understand it at all, and you had to be really quick with it, and all the exchange students were having troubles with it. So I switched to this other course that I had wanted to take earlier. So I switched to Latin, and you guys might be thinking, why would you switch from literature to Latin? But Latin's actually a lot of fun because the structure is very different, but some of the words and the way they conjugate verbs in Latin are very similar to Spanish and also the French, because French and Spanish are kind of the grandchildren or the children of Latin, I guess you could say. So learning Latin is actually helping me improve my vocabulary in Spanish, which is a big deal because if you don't have enough vocabulary, you can't really say a lot of stuff. What we have to do for Latin, here, I'll show you some homework. It's interesting. We get a text, and we have to translate it, and then we have to explain what happened in the text. Then we kind of go over, like, because in Latin the nouns change along with the verbs, so we have to go over the ending. So this is some of my homework. As you can see, I had to translate it from Latin to Spanish, and right now with my level of Spanish, I don't really have to think too much in English. I'm thinking in Spanish, so instead of going from like Latin to English to Spanish, I'm actually understanding how to go from Latin to Spanish. So yeah, this is some of like the exercise that we do. There's different endings. It's really interesting that, for example, this is right here. This is a verb, and this is a noun. So, I mean, they all have different endings in Latin, and that's kind of confusing. But it's a challenge. It's like figuring out a code. It's kind of fun to learn. Also, I'm studying French, and I said last week that I'm really enjoying the challenge of learning the new language, which I am very much. But it's very hard for an English speaker and someone who speaks Spanish to pronounce the words in French, because all the words in French are very tight-lipped, and the R is in the throat instead of R in Spanish. It's like it's in your throat, and so it's a little bit more difficult to try and pronounce things and figure out the vowels and everything like that. So if any of you guys have studied French before, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. It's very confusing to hear and then try and spell what you hear, because in French a lot of things sound the same. For example, like un and un. Like, I'm not pronouncing it very well, but un, like as in one, as in a, it's like an article, is pronounced very similar to me. It's pronounced very similar to une, which is the female. Like in Spanish, you have el and la. El is un, and then la is une, and then it's got the e, but you don't pronounce the e, so it's really, really confusing hearing it and then figuring out how to write it and everything. It's all a mess. But my other classes are going really well. My History of Spain class is pretty easy because, I mean, it's just history. We review history every day. The teacher rambles a lot, but it's okay. I like that class. And my de la Lengua Española is actually really fun because it's basically linguistics. Like we are studying morphologia, the form of the words, like the lexema, like the root of the word. And we're also studying ortografía, and right now we're studying why they accent certain parts of the word, like when to use an accent in Spanish, because in the United States, or because in English we don't use accents, but in Spanish they use lots of accents to make the words sound different and sometimes distinguish between different words and things like that. So that's interesting too, knowing why they have accents and when to use them. Not just, oh, I know that there's an accent here, like actually knowing there's an accent here because the word is this, and it breaks the diphthong and all this crazy stuff. So I'm actually really liking my classes. I have a lot of Spanish friends, which is very, very helpful. I live with Spanish girls. I mentioned this before. Four Spanish girls. So I'm always speaking Spanish. But I also have lots of friends in class that after classes we usually get together because there's like a cafeteria in each one of the buildings, and usually sip some coffee and talk about the class, and I ask questions if I felt like I missed anything. So that's really helpful, and I actually get what's going on because I can talk to them about it. And well, enough about school. Barcelona this past weekend, was a lot of fun. We flew Ryanair. Don't ever fly through Ryanair unless you want to have a near-death experience, because when we were flying, the plane fell through the air about 5 times going there and back, and it was for quite a long time, for 5 seconds at one point. So that wasn't a lot of fun. The flight wasn't fun, but being in Barcelona was awesome. Absolutely amazing. I would recommend going there, traveling there if you could. That's in Catalonia, and they speak Catalan, which is, to me, it seems like a mix of like French and Spanish. It's really confusing. For example, one of the words that was different, instead of peluqueria, which is like a salon, a hair salon, to your haircut, it was perruqueria, like the 2 R's instead of the L. And there were some French things, like, for example, the park of Güell was Parc de Güell, yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of has some tendencies of French, I guess, with some of the things. And when we were there, we visited the Sagrada Familia, which I had visited last summer, but I got to see it again, and it changes every time because there's different artists on different sides of the cathedral, and they're always adding on. They're adding on things, and they won't be done for another like 20-some years. So that was really cool. Something that you guys have to, if you guys ever go to Barcelona, is you have to rent bikes and ride around the city, because my friend and I did that, and we saw. We got to see everything in a short amount of time, but long enough time to enjoy it all. The cathedral, the old cathedral, the oldest part of the city with like the remnants of the old castle and everything, and different communities around the city. We got lost. Well, we didn't get lost because you're never lost when you're traveling, but we found ourselves in the Indian community of Barcelona, and that was really cool because there was a lot of Indian restaurants and a lot of that culture built into that community. What else? Gosh, there's always so much to do that's not touristy that I mean, it's important to find, because like go out and just experience stuff and be willing to get lost, because when we were in Barcelona, we wouldn't have known about all this stuff if we hadn't just gone out of our house and just walked. We didn't really have a plan. We just we had time to just go out and see what it was like. And we found some really cool things. We found some really cool restaurants. We went to the market. It was a lot of fun. So this week, and there's now back to school this week. There is a strike going on here at my school, but I have classes. A lot of people don't. But the strike is because they're cutting money to the scholarships, and they're cutting some classes because maybe you know this, Spain is in an economic crisis. So they're having problems with money and budget cuts in education system, but the opinion here is that education is the last thing you should cut, obviously, because they want to have good education to get good jobs, to rebuild the economy, and everything. So a lot of students have been going to the center of the city to protest during the day. This has been going on since Tuesday. But I have classes every day. I still have classes, but a lot of the upper level courses in like the faculty of law, a lot of the students are protesting that. So that's something interesting that I don't think, like, I would never see happening in the United States. Maybe in France, I mean, because I always hear there's strikes going on and you never get to go to class, but I had never experienced it, and obviously I'm not going to participate in it because it's not my battle to fight, but it's just interesting to notice some of the different things that the students experience here. It's like talking to them, I understand, you know, they talk to me about the system and how it works and everything, and so it's just interesting to learn about it as it's going on. So even though I'm kind of frustrated that some of my classes were canceled, I still had the opportunity to learn that about like why they were going on, the strikes, and it's part of the reason, you know, about the Spanish economy, and some of my professors have been talking about it. So I'm taking advantage of it, even though I'm not in school. I'm still learning, and I'm constantly learning. So other than that, this video has been kind of all over the place because, honestly, I'm all over the place. I'm doing things all the time and learning new things, and right now, with about 3 different languages in my head, English is not coming out so smoothly. So hopefully I'll write some more things and update you guys some more. So hopefully you guys are enjoying my videos. Thanks for watching.